Expedition 33 is one of the best games I've ever played, and that's coming from someone who hates JRPGs. So trust me when I say that this story and these characters are something special. But you see, what really impressed me the most about the adventure you go on in this title is that it couldn't have been done any other way. Not in a movie, a book, or even a song. Because Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is a perfect example of why games as a medium, as art, are as unique and good as it gets, showing that through agency, you give power to players in a way that makes things unforgettable. So today, I have two very specific examples of exactly how Expedition 33 does this that will show you precisely why not only this game is amazing, but how the medium as a whole can be too. But first, let me gush about this game just a little bit more. I've mentioned before that I'm not a big fan of JRPGs. To me, they always feel a little too childish, bloated, weird, and if I'm being honest, lazy a lot of the time. They just aren't for me despite some metaphor having some pretty great moments throughout the story. But somehow, some way, Expedition 33 proves that even someone like me can love this genre. In the beginning of the game, you find yourself in Lumiere, a city stuck in the sea that must watch tirelessly year after year as an evil paintress miles away slowly lowers a number from 100 to 0 atop a massive rock face. When you begin, the paintress is in the process of moving that number from 34 to 33, signaling the next gommage, where everyone above 33 years of age is turned into ash as their family and friends hopelessly watch. This dynamic is tragic as you can imagine, as families for decades have been ripped apart, where with every dissension of the clock, things only get more and more dire. To combat this situation, humanity in Lumiere every year sends forth a handful of warriors in what is known as an expedition, where they sail across the sea towards the paintress in order to try and stop her. It's a fascinating setup for a game in general, and one that hooked me immediately, despite the somewhat slow start, and things only get better from here. The writing is immaculate, characters are lovable and memorable, and most of all talk like real, genuine human beings, making jokes and being serious when the time calls for it. On top of this too, the combat in-game is the best turn-based of this style I've ever played. You see, I love turn-based games in general, but only when it's Baldur's Gate 3 or XCOM coded, or even Pillars of Eternity real-time with pause. But standard JRPG combat where you just stand there and essentially play a round of Pokemon never appealed to me much. I find it too easy while lacking the depth of movement other systems have. In Expedition 33, however, the introduction of hard-to-master parries that take notes from the FromSoft games, in addition with the Pictos and Lumina system, where you constantly will be changing your build for each character, makes the combat fun the entire way through, and very strategic and dynamic at times. So much so that in theory, you could go through the entire game without getting hit a single time, beating even the most difficult bosses at level 1 if you were patient enough. It's just all around an amazing package, and when you combine that with truly world-class world building, art design, and storytelling, along with a soundtrack that will light a fire in your soul, it's no wonder that this is one of, if not the highest rated games of all time. And it's even crazier when you realize that a team of only 30 people, along with the help of some contractors, made this masterpiece. The composer was found on SoundCloud. The lead writer was originally going to be a voice actor, but decided to try writing since it sounded fun, and a majority of the team are junior developers or people who have never worked on a video game before. It goes to show that mastery in being a professional will never get you as far as pure passion and determination. If a team of first-timers with little to no professional experience led by a small group of veteran leaders can make something like this, then there's no excuse for anyone else. And the moral of the story should honestly be, if you truly have a fervent passion in your heart to make something special, you'll get it done regardless of if you have any idea what you're doing in the first place. But regardless, my love for this game and its team aside, the most impressive part of this ensemble is actually what it shows about the game's medium as a whole. Not just how many issues there are in modern AAA game development, or how few people you need nowadays to make something quality with engines like Unreal, but also how games can be so remarkable and poignant, teaching us lessons in a way that no other art form can. And the first example I want to show you that proves this point comes from many players' favorite character, Gustave. Whether it's Lune and her inquisitive nature, Monaco's thirst for battle, Esquia's lovable and goofy demeanor, or Mael's heroism, there's something special about every character in Expedition 33. But maybe most of all, it's Gustave that leaves an impact. And that's because, as any of you who have played the game know, the big twist at the end of Act 1 is that he dies. After spending hours with this man, watching him grow closer to the party and protect all those he can while remaining strong himself, he simply is gone. The moment comes out of nowhere when, after finally defeating the Lampmaster boss, Renor, the main villain for most of the game, appears behind the shadows and traps Mael in a bubble while he kills Gustave in front of her. It's a powerful moment for sure, and one that comes as a surprise, as what many people would consider the protagonist of the story up to this point is vanquished so early on. But you know, lots of stories have moments like this. I can remember countless movies I watched as a kid or recent TV shows where important characters die. Books I've read that get an almost sadistic pleasure in killing off important people when you least expect, or songs and poems about loss of those who you held close. What makes Expedition 33 unique, though, is this loss is real. Gustave isn't just another character with a great personality that we grow attached to. He's us. For hours by this point, you will have been dumping Lumina points, weapon upgrades, or stat bonuses into Gustave especially. Your entire strategy and gameplay could revolve around him and his overpower ability, greatly increasing enemy break bars. Certain combos work well with Mael and other members, and in general, by this point, Gustave is more than just another character who's supposed to make us cry. He's an extension of your own self, your strategies for your party, and what your story has become for you. Rather than simply watching or listening as the narrative and dialogue tells us why we should love and care about Gustave, we as the players know. After all, we're the ones who are making Gustave powerful. We are the ones who are deciding where to walk with him in the open world, where to slot upgrades, and who to give the most Lumina points and weapon enhancements. Gustave's death isn't just the loss of an imaginary character we have grown an emotional bond to. It's a loss of a character we have formed as well, developing his skills and playstyle into something of our own. That's what real loss feels like. Because when it becomes clear that this game isn't pulling any punches, and Gustave really is dead, lying in a pool of his own blood in front of the orphan child he raised for years, Mael, that not only are the characters losing a man that loves and cares for them, but you are losing a part of yourself too. A part of the story you were making on your own through the decisions you made in the game beforehand. Only games have this power, because only games outside of our real lives give us the agency to choose. And it's those choices that make the stakes feel so much higher. Not only is Gustave dying an unexpected and emotional roller coaster of a twist, but in his death, he takes with him too a small part of us that had already dedicated so much to him. Even despite the fact that right after Verso takes his place as the badass quasi-leader of the group, assuming all his lost Lumina points and weapons, he just doesn't quite feel the same. And from here on out, combat situations and encounters play differently. Act 2 and 3 will never be the same as Act 1, not just because of the loss of a character, but a loss of something we had special to us in the game. And that's true loss. A tangible attachment to not only who a character is, but who they were in relation to us, as the player, with agency to act on the world ourselves. In games, the loss of characters or any pivotal emotional moments like this can have a much stronger impact on players because of the amount players pour into games as well. In a movie or book, you simply sit back and listen, observe and think about what happens and either accept it or move on. But in games, we can change things. We can affect how encounters play out or how characters grow in our minds. For example, even though you can't stop Gustave from dying, you can decide if he talked with other characters at camp or ignored them, how strong and fearless he was in battle, or if he let others fight in his place. How much you're affected by Gustave's loss is directly proportional to the effort that you put into him as well. And this is coming from a game with very few choices in the first place. After all, Expedition 33 is for the most part a very linear and straightforward game. There aren't tons and tons of branching paths or dialogue choices that drastically affect the story or quests. Overall, it's more analogous to a movie with fun combat and some exploration. But even these small moments of agency the game gives us, decisions on where to go next, how much to explore, or which people to talk to in Lumiere at the beginning of the game, all do add to the character of who Gustave is for your game. And this is exactly the kind of thing that makes games as a medium of art so special. Simply by giving players agency to make even minute decisions like these, they mold each and every character into their own. Trust me, play this game with everyone's special bathing suit outfit on, and it feels more like a comedy. Keep them in their battle outfits like it's intended, and suddenly they are much more serious and introspective. These are decisions we make, and ones that affect not only how the story feels, even when it's primarily linear, but also how we become attached to the story as well. So when you lose Gustave in Act 1, it isn't just sad because of how well written and somber the storytelling is, but because we've lost a part of what made our playthrough ours. But as sad as this moment is, it's so powerful too, and it's the reason it affected so many people greatly when they played this game. However, there is one other moment in this title that we need to talk about. One so immediately powerful that it inspired this video in the first place. A moment that proves beyond a shadow of a doubt, games as a medium of art have the most potential of anything. The ending. As if the death of Gustave in Act 1 wasn't enough of a twist, there's only more where that came from as you play Expedition 33. For example, at the end of Act 2, we learn that the Paintress is not actually our enemy, but rather our shield. Where after slaying her and saving the day, the team makes their way back to Lumiere only to be met with a horrifying scene where every single soul in their world is erased. Because you see, the big twist at the end of Act 2, which is explained further and further throughout Act 3, is that everything we know about Lumiere and the Paintress is a lie. The Paintress, also known as Aline, is actually Maël's mother. Verso is her brother, and Renoir her father. The Desandre family, as they are known in the real world, have magical powers that allow them to paint literal worlds from their imagination onto a canvas, after which it becomes reality in an alternate dimension. Some time ago, Verso in the real world had used these powers to create the city of Lumiere, which we play throughout the game. And during this period, a group known simply as the Riders attacked the Desandre family, who are part of an opposing faction referred to as the Painters. The Riders set fire to their house, resulting in Verso's death and Maël's loss of speech and one eye. This single event destroyed the family to their core, and seeking to be close with her lost son yet again, the mother Aline forces herself inside Verso's only remaining relic, his painting of Lumiere, where she becomes the Paintress and tries to maintain the Lumina magic in the world, slowly losing power as the countdown shows how many years left she can maintain the facade, with each year a percentage of people needing to be shed to allow Aline not to collapse. After this event, Renoir chases in after his wife, and with the help of the Nevrons created by Clea, Maël's older sister, tries to attack Aline to force her back into the real world where he can try to salvage the family he still has. It's a striking final reveal to an already mind-bending game. that shows the story was less about fighting your way through enemies to save civilization and more about a struggling family trying to come to terms with the death of one of their own. Where Maëlle comes into all of this is that she originally came into the painting as her real-life equivalent, Alicia, who then, upon entering, was split into her two selves, with Maëlle assuming an entirely new life in the painting for years, only in Act 3 getting her memories of her true self back. And with all of this setup, all the twists and turns, we finally get to the most important moment in Expedition 33, and one that shows exactly why video games are such potent art. Because you see, in the final moments of the story, we are given a choice to either fight as Maëlle to keep Lumière alive and stay with every character we've grown to love dearly, or side with Verso and end the madness that has wrought this family for years. Choosing Maëlle means keeping your friends, no matter how make-believe or alive they really are, like Saël, Lune, Esquier, and Monaco. Creations from the minds of both Verso and his family, who in their own imaginary world are real people too, who loved lost ones and have lives they remember. And by choosing Verso, you force a grieving family who have thrust themselves into a world of make-believe to finally again come together and stop the madness that has torn them apart, giving Renor what he has been fighting for all along, and Verso the freedom to finally let his soul find peace and quiet. It's an extremely tough decision, but one that does have a correct choice, that being fighting as Verso and ending the horrific cycle the Desandre family has found themselves in, to end eternal suffering forever at the expense of short-term pain and loss. But the thing about this choice, what makes it so special, is that we are the ones making it. The game doesn't decide for you. It doesn't make you choose Verso, the difficult but correct decision. Rather, in the final moments of the story, when we are given that choice to don the sword of Verso or Maëlle alike, our own actions and thoughts dictate the lessons we take away. By destroying the world of Lumière, we are also destroying the people we grew closest to, the characters we meticulously designed for dozens of hours, who laughed and smiled together, going on a journey that essentially meant nothing in the end. Even in a title that has no narrative choices until the very end, it nonetheless is powerful in a way no other form of art could be, putting us as players in the driver's seat, where we must decide what is important to us and what lessons we want to learn. Because if you think about it, when you watch a movie or read a book, the actions of the characters in relation to the story are meant to evoke a specific feeling or lesson for us to learn. For some, those lessons will be different than others, but regardless, they always stem from the actions of words on a page or actors on a screen. But in a game like Expedition 33, the final choice is a chance for our own minds to expand, for us to have the rare possibility of seeing what decision we would actually make and taking our own lessons from it. It's the type of storytelling that's so much more impactful than simply listening, reading, or watching something play out, when you have to use your own agency to take action and see the consequences. And when a game manages to pull off something like this, it's magical, teaching you a lesson you can never forget because you are the one who came to its conclusion through your own actions, sacrifices, emotional attachments, and choices you made beforehand. Not in proxy to another character's decisions, but in relation to your own. At the end of the day, agency is what makes games special. Knowing that even in worlds as fake as the one Verso dreamt up in his mind, that our actions, our choices, still matter. Because it's those decisions that dictate not only how these fake worlds carry on, but how we as people see our real lives as well. When I first beat Expedition 33, I felt hollow. Not because I had finished a great story and killed off all the characters I loved, but because in my heart, I had learned something. That sometimes we must make the hard decisions with short-term pain to end the suffering that eternally withers away so many. A game, just like that, had a lasting and real effect on the real world as I saw it too. A lesson that will never be forgotten. The reason I love games so much as a medium of art is because of this exact phenomenon. It's what elevates games as art to a level that other forms can never be, not in the same way at least. I think to other experiences too, like Cyberpunk 2077, my favorite game of all time, when in the end of the story, if you choose to give up in the final hours and end your life, you have to watch in horror as videos of the friends you made along the way show up on screen, crying and screaming in anger at you for giving up not just on V, the main character, not just on them, but yourself as the player, teaching us that destroying your own life is never the right choice, by showing firsthand what could happen if you did. By putting power in the player's hands to make fateful decisions like this, Cyberpunk 2077, Expedition 33, with this unique ability to capture the essence of what makes games as a medium special, by teaching us lessons that we learn ourselves through the agency bestowed upon us, through the trust in us as players to learn those lessons on our own instead of being spoon-fed like all other media. In a movie, you must show what you intend to teach. In a book, you must explain, and in a painting, you must reveal. But in a game, you can leave lessons and learning up to the player by simply giving them a journey and letting them propel themselves into it however they see fit, only hoping that they learn what you intend to give. Even other titles, like say Prey and Baldur's Gate 3, some of my other favorites, while lacking the emotional punch of Cyberpunk or Expedition, make up for this with agency through creative choices you can make in gameplay, giving players the freedom to express themselves through the world and things they can do in it. Like making makeshift staircases in Prey with the glue cannon, or jumping down a massive hole in Baldur's Gate 3 with a featherfall spell, and discovering an entire underground utopia. These are the things that make games special in the first place, and the reason I've dedicated an entire channel to them. For so many people, games are nothing more than just fun, an escape from reality, or an excuse to talk with friends on Discord. But for me, games can be so much more than that too. Vehicles for storytelling and narrative that teach us lessons in ways more powerful and everlasting than any other form of art could ever be. Or open-ended sandboxes that allow creativity for our own minds to flourish. So at the end of the day, while not all games can give us this feeling, in fact, most don't, there are a select few that if you give them the time of day and effort they demand, can not only make you think, but will potentially change you as a person, affecting how you see your real life too. That's what I love about video games. But as always, thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate the support. And for those of you interested, I recently added a new perk to all the membership tiers on this channel to get early access to each video I make. So if you want to see videos like this one before anyone else does, along with discussing topics around them on members-only Discords, consider joining as a channel member for as little as $1 a month. It helps me create videos like this and pay those who help work on the channel do the great work they do. But as always, until next time.